Welcome to the Luxury Listing Specialist Podcast with Michael LaFido, where top luxury agents reveal their best practices, plus interviews with real estate industry influencers, thought leaders, and luxury marketing experts. You'll come away from each episode with new strategies and tactics to dominate high-end homes in any market. And now for the latest episode of Luxury Listing Specialist. Here's your host, luxury real estate expert, coach, and trainer, Michael LaFido.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Luxury Listing Specialist Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LaFido. I'm excited about today's guest. Before I make that introduction, just a reminder, you are at the right place. If you are a beginning agent, if you're a veteran agent, if you're looking to increase your average sale price of a home you represent, particularly we're talking about high-end and luxury properties. And if you've listened to other previous podcasts and episodes, you know that luxury is all relevant. And for the sake of this podcast, we define luxury as 3 times whatever the average sale price is for your market. Again, you can listen to previous podcast. You go to iTunes or Stitcher, you go to Luxury Listing Specialist, look it up. Again, please leave us your reviews, and if you have any questions, if you have requests for guests, and if you have some success stories, please email them to us. You can email them to me at michael@marketingluxurygroup.com, michael@marketingluxurygroup. So with that being said, I'm really excited for today's guest. You know, luxury real estate, it's always evolving. And we're always looking for unique topics and bringing value to our listeners in various ways. And today I have with me 2 special guests from Who's Who in Luxury Real Estate. I have the founder, John Brian Losh, and Meghan Berry. Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We're really excited to have you, and we were talking a little bit before we started the recording, and man, you guys have done some amazing things, and John Brian, if you don't mind, I'll refer to you as Brian from here on out. Brian, you had this idea in 1986. If you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about, you know, Who's Who in Luxury Real Estate and kind of your vision and how it started and kind of where we're at today, and then we'll get right into the topic.
Hey, Mike. Okay. I started as a real estate broker in 1971 with a company called Ewing and Clark, which was founded in 1900, which makes it the oldest company on the West Coast. My practice evolved into the luxury market by the mid-'80s, and I felt that for me to be effective for my customers, I needed a broader exposure and broader connections. So I started contacting the companies that I'd done business with across the country, and we started Who's Who in Luxury Real Estate. It's a blue book published once a year. We've gone from this first year of 100 companies, now we have over 500 companies. We represent about 130,000 luxury agents, and we're in I don't even know how many countries around the world. In 1996, we decided that we needed to get even broader exposure, so we went to the internet and we started luxuryrealestate.com, which is the most viewed luxury real estate website in the world. And then in about 2000, we started publishing our magazine, luxuryrealestate.com magazine, which is published 3 times a year. And about 30 years ago, we started having annual and now semi-annual conferences of luxury agents around the world, around the country. We're meeting in this May in Miami. Last winter we were in London. Last fall I can't even remember where we were. Let's see, Meghan, where were we?
So what Brian has accurately described is that we always have a new meeting somewhere, but we do try to stay as geographically relevant to all of our members who are everywhere. We do 2 in the U.S. or Canada and North America, and then we usually do 1 in Europe in the wintertime.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the May event in South Beach, May 7th through the 9th, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we talk about a lot of times at our trainings Brian, we talk a lot about how people did not adapt, right? I mean, I grew up going to Blockbuster on Friday nights, and that's how you know they're not in business. Toys R Us recently closed their doors. I mean, so you had this vision in 1986, you had 100 companies, and then 10 years later, you adapted. By the way, you bought the best URL in luxury real estate out there. Heck, luxuryrealestate.com. So you were a visionary. Yeah, thank goodness. How about it, Meghan? That's amazing. You were a visionary, and we're really honored to have you on this podcast. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And Meghan, tell us a little bit about, there's two components to who's who in luxury real estate, and the primary component is the network. As Brian talked about 500 companies, 130,000 agents. How many listings are currently on luxuryrealestate.com?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Michael, because when people ask us what the most important parts of what we do are, I usually like to answer, well, it's the people and it's the website. And like we've talked about, being a luxury agent is a very coveted thing, but being connected to lots of luxury agents is really, really important. And they're actually, in this wide industry that we're in, there are very few that are really at that top echelon. But when you look at our website, like you mentioned, from all the members, we have about 50,000 listings on the site, and about, I'd say, about 70 countries that we represent through those listings. So we have a very wide-stretching amount of content.
Yeah, and having that reach is important, right? And the network is important. I always use the saying, iron sharpens iron, and networking and having a database and being connected in luxury real estate, because you don't know where that buyer is coming from, because currencies and tax incentives or tax implications, especially with luxury, you find more of a demographic from a larger global perspective. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and I think that Brian definitely had that vision when he started the network, because I think that we all know that those people buying houses over back in the day it was over $1 million. These days it's over $5 or $10 or $20 million. Oftentimes, if you own a home at the $10 million price point, you probably almost definitely have more than one of those homes, and they're probably in some of the other most coveted places to purchase those homes. So it's imperative for people who are listing and selling in important markets to be connected to one another. And just to get back to knowing the right people, we consider knowing the right people really, really important, and that is what we do. We help facilitate those relationships.
Well, that's well put. I appreciate it. Well, let's talk a little bit about the topic for today, and I'm going to steal your thunder with the topic title, just because it's so intriguing, and it was the first I've ever heard of it. So, Meghan, kudos to you on this, and it's social capital. So tell me a little bit about, when we contacted you, you had looked to see what some of the other episodes were on and some of the topics and so forth, and rightfully so. You said, well, let's talk about something that maybe hasn't been, really approached as much, and you shared the term social capital, and when you first said it, I said, well, tell me a little bit more about that, if you remember, because it was a term I hadn't heard about. So tell me a little bit about, social capital, being involved with who's who in luxury real estate, and your experience on how an agent's social capital is important for them to be successful to sell luxury real estate.
Yeah. I think that when you think about the way people are these days and the way they used to be, we're so connected these days with social media and texting and our phones, and we can connect with people so easily now, but it's not always a real true connection. And I think that when you think about as an agent, who really is more important than what you know. I mean, you definitely, especially in the luxury sector, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to stay up with your information. But if you have a listing and you know it's perfect for that other person over there down the street around the corner, you wouldn't necessarily know that unless you know everybody in your community. You also need to have connections with people outside of your community. So to me, it's a classic case of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like Brian, for example. Brian, why don't you talk about some of the community involvement that you have, some of the clubs that you're involved in, and how you stay connected socially in your local market?
Well, nothing's more important than a personal introduction. We can be introduced to people all day long through the web and social media, but nothing is as valuable as a personal invitation and a personal endorsement. So what I do in my community and around the country is I try to be involved in as many organizations as possible, clubs, associations, places where I can know and meet the people that are going to be beneficial to my customer base. So I'm constantly trying to improve my database of connections, of people of influence. And so when I can tell a customer that I personally will introduce them to a broker in New York or Chicago or Florida, that has a lot more bearing than I will go to the website and try to find somebody.
And I would also add too that I think that when you think about adding to your database of names and knowing the right people, I think sometimes think that sounds like, well, I'm going to join the golf club and hobnob with the right kind of people. To me, it's not about wealth. It's not about reach. It's about who those people are, and are they the good people? Just the other day, for example, a former intern of ours from over 10 years ago, she's someone who actually started working with us years ago, then went on to work for one of our member companies. She's just one of those people who she's one of the good people. And she contacted me and she said, I'm moving to a new place. Who do you know who I could connect with? And I connected her with two of our member companies in that city, and within a couple of hours, these top executives at these companies were responding to an email that was sent to them by this young woman. And to me, the fact that I was able to connect her, a really great rising star in this industry, with some other good people who are really, really high-level people, and have them converse right away, it proves to me that I know the right people, regardless of what their title is, or regardless of where they are in the world and where they sort of imagine themselves to be. To be a connector of people, and to be a connector of people to property, to agents, to property, to people, is really important, and it shows people that you really know your local market, you're aware of what's happening in the world around you, and you know markets beyond your own reach, and you're just highly educated and highly connected. And that, I think, that resonates with people who are, especially people who are buying in the high end.
Yeah,
and our members. Excuse me.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just saying, our members are constantly in contact with each other on a one-on-one basis. For instance, last night I heard that one of our members from New York was in Phoenix and contacted some of our Phoenix members and got together and had dinner. And those kind of referrals, where you actually know the broker and you know their territory, are invaluable to your customers.
Well, I mean, you've heard it's not what you know, it's who you know. Being highly connected and highly educated, having them both, right? I mean, being connected, but when you get that listing, now what are you going to do with it, right? Especially in that upper tier market. And we have a lot of members, just like you guys, have members all across the world, and in most marketplaces, at some price point, the shift occurs from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And you might have the connections to get the listing. You might have the connections where you think the buyers are, but in some marketplaces, there's still, it's still a stale market. And so being highly educated and knowing how to position a home and that sort of thing, it's really vital. So The social capital topic, it's a very timely topic, as we go into, the spring market. We're in the spring market in most markets right now, and, really networking, getting out there, and Brian, you kind of hit the nail on the head, is connecting, making those introductions. I just asked for an introduction today from somebody. So they said, hey, I'm going to pass along your information. I said, well, if you don't mind, maybe make an email introduction. And I do the same for folks because it's much more powerful because the power of association. Would that is that how you look at it as well, Brian and Meghan?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I know anytime a client of ours, a member of our network, contacts me and says, I know this person, they're great, they do good business, regardless of what industry it's in. If it's a real estate company who's appropriate to join Who's Who in Luxury Real Estate, fantastic. Sometimes it's a vendor, it's some company that might be a great partner for us. So, a company we could create an affinity relationship with that may be an important connection for our members to make. Recommendations for speakers for our conferences. There are always these kinds of things happening, and that to me is really what's most exciting about this business. And particularly, what I find is apparent in pretty much every one of these top agents that I've ever met. Like they know how to connect with people, and they know how important it is to connect with people and things like this.
Hey there, it's Michael LaFido. Thanks again for listening to our podcast. If you are interested in signing up for our Luxury Listing Specialist certification, or if you want additional information on how you can dominate selling higher-end homes in your marketplace, make sure you go to luxurylistingspecialist.com. Yeah.
That's really, it's really important. And I wrote this quote down the other day. I thought it was great. I believe it was a Zig Ziglar quote, and I laughed when I heard this because I'd never heard it before. And it was Zig Ziglar. He said, "Shy salespeople have skinny kids."
Yeah.
In other words, if you're afraid to network, if you're afraid to grow your database, if you're afraid to put yourself out there and network and communicate, you're going to be skinny. You're not going to be able to bring home, the bacon, so to speak. But shy salespeople have skinny kids, from Zig Ziglar. I thought that was kind of funny, but it talks about social capital. That's what that's talking about right there. Is it? Mm-hmm. Is it not, Meghan?
Absolutely. I think that the best luxury agents have this ingrained in them, and it's not something they have to force themselves to do. They're sort of naturally extroverted, and they're eager to learn about people and to talk to them and to hear what's going on. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that our network allows people to do is to expose their track record to the community, to the membership in general. And that's a pretty powerful statement as well. If you can say that you've sold 10 waterfront properties in a community, or that you've handled the top sales, or that you are the most prolific in your community, and as you can get that word out, not only locally but internationally, that's going to bring you the customers that you want for your listings.
Yeah, having that network. And not just stating it, right? I mean, being able to pull out the iPad, the smartphone, to jump on, in this case, luxuryrealestate.com, having the visual representation, having the portfolio, because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there in this industry, and a lot of people overpromise and underdeliver, as you probably know better than I do, and that's why we only have reputable companies out there. And that's why we have you on today. So, Meghan and Brian, is there anything else along that social reach, or maybe something that isn't directly tied to that, but that you would like to expound on a little bit?
I wouldn't mind sharing a little story, and Brian, you can kind of pipe in when you think it's appropriate, but this is really one of Brian's stories, and I'll just paraphrase it. But I think a lot of people, they sort of forget how community involvement can come back to you in spades. And, everyone has their causes that they're involved in, or their clubs that they're involved in, or things that they love to contribute their time and efforts and money to, in different realms. But, there was a time when one of Brian's sort of visions was to send a letter to the local newspaper here in Seattle about a big to-do that was going on about a property line for someone, a very wealthy person, for someone who works for one of the biggest companies here in Seattle. And Brian wrote a letter to letter to the editor, sort of backing this person up and sort of saying, hey, everybody back off of the property line issue. It's a valid mistake, blah, blah, blah. And so by sort of sticking his neck out and sort of, showing himself and sort of saying, I feel this way on this particular situation, I backing this person up, he actually gained the attention of that person, and then that person came and worked with Brian to buy and sell a home, and then to buy and sell another home, and then to buy and sell another home, and then little by little he started referring all of the top executives in his company to work with Brian and his company. And to me, it showed that showing the interest in what's going on around you, and showing the interest in more than just, I'm the top producer and I've sold the most houses in my community, but really investing in the place where you're listing and selling property. It really shows people that you're quality stock, and that you're not just there to take their money and sell their house. You're there to make sure that the community you're listing and selling in is a better place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's such a good point. I think the default answer for many real estate agents, especially when it's talking about luxury, is lower the price. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're overpriced, right? A lot of these properties might be overpriced. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But many times you have an uneducated agent. Maybe they don't have the experience. They don't have the network. They're not highly connected. They don't have the social capital, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so they either panic or they don't know anything else to say, lower the price. And unfortunately, that affects the community. That affects home values. And again, maybe they are overpriced. But in many instances, I've found, talking to members and so forth, Meghan, that they're not. And there's a recent property that I was interviewed for, and they went with an out-of-an-area agent. And the agent lowered it. We're talking $1.8 million, lowered it to $1,299, sold in 2 weeks. The thing was so price hacked. The price adjustment probably should have been 1.6-ish, but $1,299. I mean, anybody could sell it, and so they left hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. And consumers sometimes don't know any difference either. So having a who's who in luxury real estate is like a third-party validation, which, kudos to you for, Brian, having this vision so many years ago, because it is needed. It is needed. I talk to influential people from industries. One of my good friends, Jim Morton, runs a printing company called Prospects Plus. I mean, he had an experience in real estate where, he went with someone that sold a lot in a particular neighborhood. But, if there was that third-party validation company that would have, held that agent accountable, or perhaps given them the network and the connections, he would have felt much better about it. But he didn't really have any options. Another gentleman that started a company and he sold it to DocuSign years ago. He bought a home, and he said he would have paid $200,000 to $300,000 more. It sold for, I think, $1.7. But the listing agent didn't mention the pool, didn't mention the pool house, and not only that, didn't even show photos of it. So poorly positioned the home. He was thankful because he got a heck of a deal, but that's the problem with the industry. So I love having who's who on and you guys on, because it's really about raising the standard, because a lot of people talk about disruptors. I go to these conferences, disruptors, this, that, and some agents are panicking. They get panicked by the Redfins and the Zillows, and I tell them, don't panic. It's a people-based business. People don't care how much people know until they know you care, and and the human side of it. And that's why I think there's some synergies with your topic today, and being highly connected and being likable.
Mike, one question that comes up a lot is how do I build social capital? How do I make connections? I'm not in that circle, or I never will be. And I tell them the best way to build your social capital, to meet people of influence, is to get involved in your community, and not only in civic issues, but on the library board, or the museum board, or the school board, or Little League, or any number of activities that you can do in your community, and that's how you're going to meet people of influence. And once you've worked with somebody at the local art museum, they don't care if you have $1 billion or $100. If you're involved in the community, you're helping out, and you're showing interest in your community, it'll pay off for you in spades. So I often encourage, especially young agents, you can't get started soon enough with meeting people and getting involved in your community.
That's great.
Great advice. And, to piggyback off that, I always tell, Brian, folks as well, the best way to get referrals is give referrals. Lead with a giving hand. Be a connector. Yeah. We all know that connector. You go to a party, you go to a chamber meeting, go to the country club, and, hey, I got someone you got to meet, and they're connecting people, and that's called reciprocity. So if you walking out of a restaurant and someone opens a door for you, you feel obligated to hold the door for the person behind you. So reciprocity, lead with a giving hand, being connected. Brian, like you said, being involved in your community, whether it be something philanthropical, whether it be just being involved, that is huge. I mean, I know so many successful male and females, but so many successful female agents that they first got their start because they were really likable. They were involved in the community, they were involved in the schools, and people liked them and they trusted them. And I tell people all the time that dealing with high net worth individuals, it's just like the movie Robert De Niro was in called Meet the Parents. It's very difficult to break into that circle of trust, if you remember from Meet the Parents. And one of the ways you can do that is being connected in your community, right, Brian? And being likable and trustworthy.
Absolutely.
And one other thing we didn't mention yet is that all these connections are great, but really what pays off is hard work. Just the other day, one of our competitors commented to me about one of our top agents that she has the most incredible work ethic he's ever experienced, which just means hard work, 24/7 hard work. And you're never going to succeed unless you work hard, and that means you have to accept the fact that it's a business that occupies the vast majority of your time, if not all your time. So I always tell people what the secret to success, and I think it's hard work. And everything we're talking about today is hard work, but if you don't have the work ethic to see it through and get through the tough times, you probably won't make it.
Yeah. Yeah, we could have a podcast. We could have a podcast just on that alone, but you're absolutely right. I always start out my conferences with talking about building that firm foundation, and that foundation is that mental toughness, because in this business you get kicked in the shins a lot, but you're absolutely right. Hard work. If it were easy, Brian, everybody would do it. And with these $1 million listing shows and everything, they make it look so easy and multiple offers and this, that, and the other thing. But that's far from the reality in most marketplaces, as you know. And it takes hard work. It isn't easy.
And I tell people in the sales meeting, just look around. And you go to any sales meeting, you look around, and you know who's making the most money. And it's also the person that works the hardest. Yeah,
and I do believe that luck is the residue of hard work, right? It's not, their ship sailed in or this, that. No, they've been busting their butt. They pound on enough doors, someone's going to say yes, right?
Yep.
Yep.
We have a saying here in our office, no just means not now.
Yep, that's exactly right. Well, really, really, really good insight. Let me ask you, if anybody wants to find out more about who's who in luxury real estate, or maybe if they want to see if their company would be a good fit, or that sort of thing, Meghan or John, what's the best way for them to go about?
They can just go to our site. Our site, luxuryrealestate.com, has opportunities to contact us. So please take a look. Contact us.
And for the conferences, are conferences just for members, or if somebody?
Yes.
Okay, it's just members only conference. Okay, very good.
Yeah, and honestly, that's our way of ensuring that, just like with our website, with our network, there's an application process. So it's our way of ensuring that when people are in a room together with a bunch of other luxury brokers, they're in good company, and they're with people who are legitimately having their having their peers sit shoulder to shoulder and really tackle some big issues, and learn from great speakers and listen to great panels, and listen to industry leaders. We really don't like to have people who want to break into the industry. Most of our members, all of our members have to be people who are already representing luxury real estate listings, listing
Sure.
and selling.
Okay, fair enough. And we haven't made the official announcement either. So I'm proud to say that we are a proud partner with Who's Who in Luxury Real Estate, and we're helping sponsor the spring retreat. And hopefully your members will be hearing more about us as well. So It's definitely collaboration, and I know you guys did your due diligence on us, and we're really excited to be part of the network.
We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being there.
Happy to work with you.
Great. Well, good. Well, hey, guys, I want to be respectful of your time. Amazing content. And Brian, I just want to thank you for being a visionary, because that's really, luxury is my passion, and you had a vision way back in 1986 and in 1995-96 with the website, and then growing the companies from 100 to 500 and 130,000 agents, and so thank you. And Meghan, you've been with the company since you mentioned it offline, but how long you've been with?
16 years I've been with the company.
Oh my goodness! Well, great.
Yeah. I started as a middle school intern, of course.
That's right. You started when you were 6, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Meghan has a fantastic job, unbelievable job. We owe a great deal of our success to Meghan and her staff. How many are on your staff, Meghan?
We have about 20 people on staff right now.
That's awesome.
Big operation. Well, Mike, one last thing I wanted to say is the other thing that makes our network different than other networks is that it's all-inclusive. We have franchise company, independent boutique companies, large companies, small companies, and some of our competitors, if you are an independent company and you buy a franchise, you're immediately expelled. We welcome.
Well, that's interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up. So you're all inclusive, so to speak. In other words, you still have to be a producer, and you got to fit the criteria, so to speak. But whether you're Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's, Boutique A, Boutique B, it doesn't matter, correct?
As long as you can prove to us that you sell luxury real estate and you're competent in what you do. And that's why our network gets bigger and bigger, as well as some of the other networks are getting smaller and smaller, because we never expel anybody for doing what they have to do to be competitive in their market.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a huge distinction between you guys and other companies. So that's great. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm a student of the game. You got to be like a sponge. So I can learn from boutiques. I can learn from KW. I can learn from Coldwell Banker. We've had them all on our podcast, because I believe everybody brings value, and we all have value. And I don't have a scarcity mindset. And unfortunately, many people in this industry do. They keep their secrets close to their chest. And so hats off to you guys for being innovators and being all inclusive.
Yeah. So anybody that has any interest in expanding their base, we'd love it if you get in touch with us. We'd love to talk to you.
Great. And that's luxury real estate. You're welcome. And that's luxuryrealestate.com. Again, Meghan Berry and John Brian Losh, thank you so much for your time. Again, in the future, if you guys have any questions, just a reminder, go to Mike. You can email me, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. Don't forget to download previous episodes on iTunes or Stitcher. And again, if you want more information about our certification helps agents that are either breaking into or they're already selling high-end and luxury homes. They just want to distinguish themselves even further. You can go to luxurylistingspecialist.com. My name is Michael LaFido. Until next time, have a great day, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Bye-bye.